Wow, bad chroma key? What is this, the Pertwee era? Alright, I got a green screen for Christmas and now I'm abusing it and it looks bad. I know, I'll do my best to polish it up, but it's an experiment that's probably going to fail. I'll own that right away. Hopefully, this won't be the new norm. Now, I did say the next video essay I do would be on the Daleks' master plan, but I thought it would be better to have more Hartnell reviews under my belt before I do something like that. And I wanted to talk about an episode of Doctor Who that wouldn't leave me crying in the bathroom in fetal position. So with all of that out of the way, let's talk Thin Ice. It's been noted that one of Dollard's strengths is how she fleshes out environments. Let's take the opening scene. We have the Doctor and new companion Bill just seeing the sights of the Frost Fair. Dollard's enthusiasm for the setting really comes across here, and Hayley Neubauer knocked it out the park in terms of costumes. So, hats off to you. Such a fun energy and movement to this set. Plus, how nice is it that we just get to watch the Doctor and his companion just have fun for once. I love the music that plays during this bit. It contrasts with the lovely tense drum score we get when things go properly off the rails. Stay back! It's 7 minutes until we get to the real inciting incident, which sounds like quite a bit for a 45-minute block of television, but it doesn't feel like it's outstaying its welcome. It's so enjoyable that you almost don't want the plot to start.
You're enjoying yourself. I assume we get to work eventually.
And of course, we keep cutting back to the creature that no one's aware of in order to build up the tension. Sounds familiar. One thing that leaves the location free on display is that there's no historical figure involved to suck all the oxygen out of the room. There's no point where we have to sit down with them, get to know their life story. There's no central hub that we're spending the night at. The Doctor and Bill are free to explore on their own, and they don't stay at any one location too long. When Dollard was asked about writing, especially for Doctor Who around the time Face the Raven was aired, she responded with this. And I think it could be loosely applied to this episode. Dollard understands that a mystery is an excellent format for world building because it's a great way of filtering the information across, because the characters are given all the excuse they need to ask loads and loads of questions.
Only by asking why can one get to the real truth. It's the Socratic Method.
The environment is brought to life through the plot and the investigation. An example of this is Face the Raven, where, in trying to work out where the Trap Street was, we learn a bit about how its defences work and what that implies about the kind of place it is. Another thing I've noticed is that we stick with the Doctor and Bill throughout the story. We don't cut away to the villain or any other characters. You'd think that would make the world feel less fleshed out, but this focus actually does wonders. And so over the course of the story, we meet all different kinds of people. We see every aspect of this depiction of Regency London's social structure and landscape. We see the starving children who have to steal in order to survive. We see the crowds, the general public, the workers and the foreman, and the one they answer to, the aristocrat living in the lavish house. And this brings us very nicely to... We meet so many different kinds of characters over the course of this story, but each one of them leaves at least some kind of impression. Even Spider, the child who dies really early on, gets a couple of details about him that you notice on a rewatch.
Kitty, come look!
Just to make you feel extra awful about the fact that he gets eaten alive. All the child actors killed it, by the way. Not only are all these characters linked together like a good mystery should do, but they're all part of the critique of capitalism in this story. They're all part of this system. They're all cogs in this machine that keep it going, knowingly or otherwise. Kitty and the children advertise the fair. The foreman answers directly to Sutcliffe. Even the fish pie Toinkos guy knows a bit about what's going on, but keeps quiet about it. Every time I make a video about a 12th Doctor story, I'm going to need a whole segment where I just gush about his character. This episode is so satisfying to watch if you've been following the Capaldi era up to this point, because it shows just how far this iteration of the Doctor has come. Sandifer pointed out that Dollard's really good at weaving all of 12's characterizations together. We've got the University Lecturer 12 that we've been dealing with throughout the series, Dad Skills 12 from Listen, Basil Disco.
Ross, swallow that.
What the? Turn it off, there's a button on the side.
What is it? Trust me.
Here, do it here.
Afraid of There's an act to it. Top player, if you want to say a few words.
It all feels like a cohesive character. 12's initial focus on saving the sonic screwdriver when Spider dies provides a nice mirror of Sutcliffe, only prioritising things over people. Now obviously we know that's not the case, and it's immediately contrasted by him trying to help the girl. But from Kitty's perspective, he doesn't look that different to the scumbags of this time. 12's whole arc is a struggle between pragmatism and his sentiment. Here you can see how much progress he's made. If this was series 8-12, he wouldn't have comforted Bill. If this was series 9-12, he would have tried to save the boy even if it was too late, or just sacrifice Spider to save Clara for the billionth time. Here, there's a happy middle ground. And what I appreciate about this is that it means that 12 was right to be pragmatic, even early on. That was never his character flaw. He's just gotten better at communicating this side to people.
Do something and save him.
Like Face the Raven, the companion is handed whole buckets of agency. Most writers would have given Bill the "have you killed anyone" speech and called it a day.
What'd you do? Apart from shout at him?
Quite a bit actually. Bill actually has to reckon with what she's seen here and learn and grow as a result. She's active throughout the investigation, applying common sense to the Doctor's own insights. She's called upon to make some really tough choices, and see her work through her thought process and see what kind of things she decides. This all really informs her character. And then, on top of all that, we have this.
Run. But there's still people. Forget them, there's no time.
This is what I show to people when they claim that Bill Potts never had any character development. Within one episode, she's had a whole arc.
You gave the order, boss.
I even appreciate Sutcliffe as a giant bag of cocks. He's been criticised as a bit of a caricature, given our first impression of him is this.
Who let this creature in here? On your feet, girl! In the presence of your betters!
Okay, he's not the deepest Doctor Who antagonist.
No
But there are facets about him that feel real, and make his inclusion feel like a real bitingly accurate critique.
People know the ice is dangerous, yet they will insist on their festivities. That's hardly my fault. Without that beast, my mills would rely on coal mines. And men die in coal mines all the time. I move this empire forward.
He delivers his motives like they're reasonable, and while yes, they're all obvious bullshit that no sane person would even try to defend. Oh, it's okay, Ben. You can do it. Just another day of defending a bigot for the algorithm. Why didn't the Doctor put a stop to these thieves, or as the episode calls them, homeless children? Sutcliffe is a hard-working man. All he had going for him at the start of this was a business that was passed down to him and a giant, massive house that he inherited. It's like he said, people die in coal mines all the time, and that clearly justifies him blowing up all of the tech. You see, if Spider hadn't died, the Doctor would never have gotten his sonic screwdriver back. What is he meant to do? What, take money out of his pockets to make the coal mines more safe? And that means he wouldn't have been able to use it to defeat the Cybermen in the finale. How are his men meant to respect him if he virtue signals like that? Yeah, that's right, Sutcliffe saved the Doctor. You SJW types know nothing about business. You let this man down. Going back to what Sarah Dollard said about language, and what are people revealing about their motives that they didn't mean to reveal, what are they not saying?
The elephant, it's all you.
I made the most of the situation.
And then when he's caught in a lie, he just squirms before he has to own the fact that he's a complete bastard. The episode doesn't even entertain the idea that he's got a leg to stand on. And after dismissing that possibility very soon after establishing him, the rest of the episode's free to let him be a complete caricature, complete with a proper Disney villain death. A joke character that's sadly just not silly enough for reality.
It's the first proper freeze it's caused in years.
Why? Production down, huh? Not enough people dying.
It's a dying business, and he's still pushing for it. I really like this in particular because it's something I noted in my Which is Familiar video essay. The critique of actions not just for them being evil, but because they just don't work. the people who support them say they do. After first holding a mirror between 12's pragmatism and Sutcliffe's rhetoric, Dollard successfully morally distinguishes the two. Well thought out, mature responses to ethical dilemmas about poo.
Do you think the Earth would be a better place now if the Industrial Revolution was powered by poo instead of coal?
So the question that might be fair to ask is, why couldn't this have been a pure historical, other than the fact that we're just dead set against not doing them anymore? It's about industrial fuckheads killing children. That was Tuesday for Victorian England. There have been many reasons suggested for why the historicals died out. Harbo has pointed out that they were kind of formulaic. They got low ratings, so everyone thought they were kind of unpopular. And these are all valid criticisms, but I think the winning argument, really, for me, from a moral perspective, the historicals, especially the early ones, are kinda, well, fucked. If you watch all the Hartnell stories, you may have noticed there are generally two categories of historical. The fanbase's resident penis expert, Davis, made the divide between the historical costume dramas and the fun panto pieces. This lines up pretty well with Elizabeth Sandifer's divide, the Lucarotti and the Spooner versions, named after their respective writers. The former is what most people would think of when they think of the pure historicals, and the Spooner ones are the precursors for the historicals that we know nowadays. The former is about the TARDIS team having to survive the past, the latter is about having as much fun with all the different tropes available to a historical piece. A weird example of this is think how a video game handles history. Yahtzee Croshaw kind of pointed this out, that every video game about World War II covers the same few events. If you want to do the Cold War, you've got the Bay of Pigs invasion, Vorkuta, Vietnam, guy doing his best Kennedy impression, Manchurian Candidate plots, Nuclear Armageddon, all lovely, very ethical storytelling. Sandifer puts forward that the two different kinds of historicals died out for two different reasons. The Spooner model prioritised fun over all else, especially as the show became less and less about being educational. So at that point, why limit your toy box to just the historically accurate stuff? Again, another example of this is in video games. Yeah, it might be fun to receive a briefing from Kennedy, but wouldn't you rather fight zombies with him? Now about that moral fuckness I alluded to earlier. Well, that's the reason the Lucarotti model died out. The goal in those stories is just to survive and get the hell out of there. Overcome whatever obstacles the past offers, whether it's not starving to death, or being sacrificed to gods, or just trying not to be confused by the plot. Overcome all of those, you get to the TARDIS, and you leave. The Doctor and companions are not there to save the day in that scenario. Sandifer points out that this was only possible in early Hartnell because the Doctor was an untrustworthy figure who wasn't about saving people. He just wanted to leave and get on with the next adventure, or keep Susan out of danger at the very most. But then, at least after Dalek invasion of Earth, and possibly since the Sensorites, the Doctor became the hero that we know and love today. So this model becomes harder and harder to justify from a character perspective. Like, obviously I get why the Doctor doesn't change history. It opens a logistical can of worms that you don't want to saddle new writers with. And it's not just pure historicals, it can happen in any story where preserving the past is the main objective. Vera over at Council of Geeks kind of alludes to this problem in her second video on Rosa, though I'm oversimplifying things and her reasons are a lot more personal. So for a more in-depth thoughts, please do check out that video. It's not really good to watch the Doctor not confront the evils of the past and just walk away saying it's not his problem. Especially when the Doctor has no problem interfering in the affairs of other planets. So is Thin Ice a Lucarotti or a Spooner? Earlier on it does seem more primed towards the Spooner model. There's a fun element of dress-up, fun and games, disgusting food, making the quite reasonable observation that history is a whitewash. I'd say things take a pretty Lucarotti-esque turn, though, as soon as Spider dies. Then it becomes about a detailed texture that the characters have to survive. Things are genuinely dangerous here. Now, it's been remarked that this episode is playing around with pretty well-worn ideas. One of which is to do an episode where it isn't monsters or aliens, but it's humans all along. This happens a lot in sci-fi fantasy shows, and it's an idea Chris Chibnall seems to like quite a bit. Though, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first time this has happened in a historical story. And that makes sense. The evolution of the historical happened the other way around. Putting aliens into a historical setting was considered the upgrade. So this is sort of like a reverse time meddler. The sci-fi elements are introduced up front, and then we have a story about a real-world human evil. This, I think, solves the problem somewhat. If we take an evil that's happened in the past, the lives of particularly children in Victorian England being prioritised over industrial progress, we create a sci-fi scenario, and boom, the Doctor is now able to confront the evils in our history like he should be doing. Hell, it even takes it a step beyond that. The story doesn't just end with the monster being freed. The kids living rough are given Sutcliffe's house. And while it acknowledges potential ramifications of interfering in time, it points out that writers shouldn't worry about these logistics so much.
You can always rely upon the papers to miss a headline.
Just play the old human race never notice anything trick, and you're good to go.
How do we know it wasn't secretly already?
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, the Doctor at the end, they do a pretty good job of hiding it.
Yeah.
So
you never know.
Now, I'm slightly fibbing when I say this specific formula for historical has never cropped up before. There are a bunch of outliers in New Who, each with their own unique set of circumstances that I do want to talk about more in the future. There's only one that I think does quite the same thing as this, though. Mommy. But that's for another time. Overall, it's a shame that Sarah Dollard hasn't written an episode since. Apparently Chris Chibnall did reach out to her before Series 11, but unfortunately she was busy at the time. Which makes complete sense. Can you imagine how well this would have fit in alongside stuff like Demons of the Punjab? And that's not even counting Face the Raven. I've got some quibbles over how well the Series 9 finale works as a trilogy, but the last time a new writer had that much on their first plate, we got the twin dilemma. The more I think about Thin Ice, the more remarkable it seems. I'm definitely not the only person to notice all the parallels to past historical adventures.
It's like in the films, you step on a butterfly, you change the future of the human race.
If I step on a butterfly, it could send ripples through time that mean that I'm not even born in the first place.
Then don't step on any butterflies. What have butterflies ever done to you?
The way it looks back on the past, the way it makes the corrections that probably should have been there in the first place.
I'm not going to get carted off as a slave, am I?
Why would they do that?
Not exactly white, in case you haven't noticed.
I'm not even human. Just walk about like you own the place. It works for me.
Slavery is still totally a thing.
Yes, it is.
The way it takes ideas that, again, we've seen over and over before, but remixes them and gets the formula in such a specific way that it feels like a major step forward. It is my go-to blueprint for a good historical story now. So, funny thing, I was trying to get this video out on Sarah Dollard's birthday, but apparently I've missed that by at least a week. I got my dates mixed up, so yay, that's nice. I bought a cake and everything. Worked really hard on this, guys. I'm just gonna have to eat this whole thing by myself. That's the video, guys. Fuck you. I recorded 5 whole minutes of me just eating cake and looking sad. I have very weird priorities. But thank you for watching all the way through, if you've got here. Sorry about all this. Go get a plate, you dumbass! I recently hit 100 subscribers, which, based off this, I've no idea why any of you bothered to do that, but thank you. Should have another video up within about a couple of weeks. There's probably not going to be any more video essays for a while, but my worst episode ever format will be continuing. I think I'm doing the Time Warrior next. Mainly because the Sontarans still seemed a bit topical. If any of that's of interest to you, please join me in this horrendous vacuum. Have a good evening. Not even great cake. Ungrateful little shit.